What does this bright yellow Camaro have in common with the first '69 ZL1? We'll find out. The ZL1 name was reserved for two very special Camaros. The very first one was back in 1969, and the ZL1 was an option code that referred to an all-aluminum 427 cubic inch V8. And back in those days, they made 69 ZL1 Camaros featuring that 427 that were primarily designed to be drag race cars. 1969 ZL1 number 1 resides today in the Brothers collection, and these are extremely sought-after cars, not only because they were such a rare car, but because they were very, very powerful. And a lot of them were very successful drag cars, and they have a lot of history. For 2012, Chevrolet resurrected the ZL1 name. They came out with this car, in which the ZL1 refers to much more of an entire car package than just the engine alone. In fact, Chevrolet claims that over 30% of the Camaro had been changed and modified to become the ZL1. Underneath the special ZL1 hood, you find the supercharged Chevrolet LSA V8 engine. And this is an all-aluminum 6.2-liter V8, and sitting on top is a crinkle-coated black supercharger. And there's a lot going on here because not only do you have the supercharger, underneath that hat is an intercooler and a heat exchanger hidden behind the grille. You see a couple of hoses that come down. The way the system works is there's a pump that pushes coolant from that supercharger through the heat exchanger where the heat's pulled out of it, so that the air intake temperature is reduced, because when you compress air, you heat it up. The cooler the air, the more power you make, and this translates to 580 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 556 foot-pounds of torque at 4,200 RPM. It's a 9.1-to-1 compression engine, and it was available either with a 6-speed 6L90 automatic transmission, or like this car, the 6-speed manual, which is known as a TR6060. The final drive ratio is a 373-to-1 rear gear for the manual, and the automatics came with a 323. This car is much bigger and heavier than the 1969 ZL1. The 2012 version weighs 4,120 pounds, but it still maintains a 51% to 49% front to rear weight distribution. And with that 580 horsepower, it translates into a car that is really, really fast. This thing was estimated by GM to run 12 second quarter miles, but out on the test track, program manager Tony Roma claimed that this thing was able to run an 1193 at 116 miles an hour. And that's screaming for a car like this. That 1193 quarter mile time was on the factory issued Goodyear Eagle F1 Supercar G2 tires. So these are street-driven tires that can be driven every day. If you unbolt those and put on a set of drag slicks or even drag radials, you start to shave even more time off that quarter mile. And it's interesting because the NHRA rules say that if you're running 11:49 or quicker, you have to have a roll cage. So this car runs the ragged edge of being NHRA legal, even though this car was intended to be drag raced. The GM engineers fortified the driveline with a 9.9-inch rear gear in a cast iron center section, and they added asymmetrical half shafts. The one side is a 33mm solid shaft, and the other one's a 60mm hollow shaft. And these are there so that this car can withstand extremely hard drag strip launches. They came up with a test protocol called the Woodward Avenue Schedule at the GM Milford Proving Grounds, named after the famed Woodward Cruise, in which they gave this thing over 1,000 hard drag strip launches to make sure that this car could handle the abuse of racing on the weekends, but still be docile enough to drive in everyday traffic. They claim it's truly a supercar you can drive every day, and with performance numbers like this, we have to agree. Before the ZL1 was unleashed on the general public, Chevrolet had some pre-production versions built that they gave to Camaro team members and the media and TV shows and stuff, and these were called CTF cars, or Controlled Test Fleet Vehicles, and they were used to evaluate the final build quality and, again, being used in magazines and stuff like that. And to pay homage to the original 69 ZL1s built, Chevrolet made 69 CTF pre-production cars. Well, this is the very first pre-production ZL1 Camaro. This particular car is finished in rally yellow, and there was only 69 of these made in the yellow. So it's kind of interesting that all these numbers line up to bring you this very special car. The functional air extractor in the ZL1 hood looks like just a piece of plastic, but if you look underneath, this is actually a carbon fiber piece. The drip tray here is plastic, but that insert is real carbon, which was an option. Most of them had the exposed carbon, but a certain had a different stripe package, which had the black on the carbon fiber insert. The very first production version ZL1 was very famously auctioned off for charity right when these cars were built. But again, this one is a pre-production version, being a captured test fleet vehicle, so it's only fitting that the same collection that holds 1969 ZL1 number 1 also has 2012 ZL1 number 1 in the Brothers collection. Chevy could have pulled out the ZL1 name at any time between 1969 and 2012. We're glad they chose a 580 horsepower supercharged version that's worthy of the name to bring that badge back. But is it a modern muscle car or a muscle car? Let us know on our Facebook page or our website at musclecaroftheweek.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see what we pull out next time on Muscle Car of the Week.